Welcome to another exciting episode of the Million Dollar Peddlers. I'm Paper Guy. And today I wanted to talk about just how far you've come in your business, how far I've come in my business, Mr. Magazine has come in his business. I'm certain that if I were to look back in time, if I magically could be floating above, looking back at the way that I was running my business back in 2005, I would have shuddered. I can't even remember back then if I put everything in a bag or not when I shipped it out. I sure I used some sort of a cardboard stiffener, but for instance, I remember a lot of books. What I would do is I had a friend that worked at Aldi's, and he would get the cardboard from 12 packs of Coke, the single can cardboard, and I would take that and I would cut that in half, and it worked perfectly to put a book in, and I would ship books out that way. Have to tape it all up and ship it out. And it worked. There's no doubt at all that it worked. Now I find it much easier to sit there and use an envelope or a real box. Part of it, of course, was at that time I was on a shoestring budget. Part of it was at that time I didn't know any better. And we've all learned from the things. You sit there and you try to cut corners because you don't have the money to sit there and properly bubble wrap it. So you bubble wrap it as best you can, and you say, oh, that'll get there, and so on. And you just need to get professional as quickly as you can. You're going to get ripped off, unfortunately. There are people out there that are going to lie, cheat, and steal to get your stuff from you. It happens. You grin and you bear it and you move on. And we had a video a long time ago, basically a cost of doing business. And that's exactly what a lot of the stuff is. And Mr. Magazine, if he were here, he would tell you he used to get really upset over things like that until I sat him down one day and was talking to him about what his sales numbers were, and which we've revealed before and we'll reveal again next year as well. And the one thing I said to him is, I said, you realize you're losing your temper and getting upset over $100. You need to stop and think of that as a rounding error, because that's really all it is. And yes, I know it sticks in your craw that somebody took you for $100. You do the best you can. You report the buyer to eBay. You ban the buyer, and you just move on. They got one over on you, and as I realized a long time ago, if something other like that happens, well, they need the item more than I need the item, because they did underhanded things in order to get it. And I finally clicked in on him as well on that over there. But really what it comes down to is it's all business. You can't sweat it. In the long run, as long as you're making money and you're a little better off at the end of the year than you were when you started the year and your bills are paid, you just keep plugging away and keep going forward. You're a little bit older, a little bit wiser. You've made some contacts. Hopefully you've made some friends. And it'll all be a positive thing. But too many people fixate on the negative. Too many people get upset over the negative. And I'm not saying that I don't as well. I'm not saying that I get happy when something or other bad happens, because obviously I don't. But you've got to try to put it out of your mind and move on, because the problem is you can get into a really bad place where you start fixating on the negative. And once you start doing that, you go down a bad rabbit hole. So realize it's business, it's never personal. And, realize that there's some bad actors out there. There simply are. And nothing is going to change them. You do the things you can to try to limit that. Give a perfect example. There are certain countries, Mexico and Italy being two of the ones that a lot of people have had a lot of problems shipping to. So what do? You limit your exposure by not selling to those countries, not shipping to those countries. You have various items. I know Mr. Magazine gets a lot more problems than I do. One of the reasons why is because of the stuff he sells. He sells things that would go to a younger demographic. Not to stereotype, but I'm going to. The people that are buying a 1927 Collier's magazine typically would be older folks. And not that there aren't bad people that are older, but if you're buying that, you're probably somewhat comfortable as far as you've got some money because you can spend it on something other like that. You don't, you've gone through life and you understand things a little bit better, and you're not going to try to put one over on somebody. I'm lucky in that the product mix that I sell generally does not get that many scammers. And I also sell lower priced items. Mr. Magazine gets up into selling thousands of dollars, items that are thousands of dollars. I think I've sold 2 or 3 of those in my life. So certainly I've got a lot less exposure to that. And let's be honest with you, if somebody rather were to rip me off on a $15 analog magazine, they rip me off on a $15 analog magazine. I mean, it's the end of the day, can't really worry too much about it. It happens. We've all had that happen. The person says, oh, I got the envelope and it was open. Well, it wasn't when I sent it. And so on. You grin and you bear it, and you send the people the refunds. You do what you have to do to keep your feedback as close to 100% as you possibly can. You don't get into arguments with them. Try to act professional. And I didn't always do that. I used to make little snide remarks. I used to make snide comments back on neutrals or negatives if somebody rather left them. And let's be honest, if you've been on the receiving end, it kind of hurts, especially when not only did the person not reach out to you, but they also were unreasonable in their comment. I mean, I had a gentleman many years ago, I know I've recounted this story before, but I sold an ashtray with chips, showed the chips, mentioned it was chipped, got a negative because it was chipped. Yes, I could see getting a negative because it wasn't chipped, because I promised that it would be, but to get a negative because it was chipped because this person didn't look at the picture and didn't read the description seemed a little bit unfair to me. And of course, I got upset because that's the natural thing to do when I showed it, I mentioned it, and then you left me a negative for something that we were all aware of. Now I would just shake my head and probably contact eBay on that, because now we have free returns and the world has changed a lot on that sort of thing. But it's still excruciating to sit there and see that sort of thing happen. And you want to pull your hair out, if I had any, and you say, really? Didn't they read the description? Didn't they look at the picture? What did they think they were buying? And again, it also happens on the side of if you get wronged as a buyer. The worst thing you can do is reach out to the seller with all caps. What are you trying to do? You cheat, which is what some people feel is a good opening comment. And of course, what happens at that point? But the seller's defenses go up, and the odds of there being a amicable resolution are very, very slim at that point. These are things that hopefully you learn with age. I think a lot of us are rash and hot-headed to some extent, and have to be, let everyone know that we're right when we're 17 years old and 20 years old. It's just part of the maturing process that you learn when to move on. So hopefully that helps you a little bit out there. Just remember, it's business. Be professional as you possibly can be. You'll find that helps you out much more in life. Occasionally you do have to let off steam. Write the email 2 or 3 times and don't hit send. Get it out of your system, because you can say all the things you want, yelling about, his mother and his dog and his this and his that and blah, 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 and you hope and blah, blah, blah. And then type the one, I understand your concerns. However, I would like to offer the following solution. And you'll have gotten it out of your system and then treated professionally. So that way, if eBay gets involved, they don't see that you're calling the buyer names after he called you names. So take the high road. It is difficult at times, I will admit, but in the long run, it will serve you well. You know what else will serve us well? If you hit the like button. We'll see you next video.